Finally, reread your paper as a whole. Now, compose a conclusion that ties these concepts to a larger context. Evaluating evidence, Tannen, Copeland, why are these things important? Are these things important? What do they mean for other realms of our life? Your conclusion, just like your introduction, is worth 15 points. Let's take a look at the sample conclusion. It's just her opinion. Why does she have to prove it? You're being too hard on her, some might argue. This is not a scientific journal, others might protest. Precisely. This is not a scientific journal. It is a popular article, one that many people will likely read, one that could influence the thoughts and possibly behaviors of men and women in marriages across the country. And there are articles like it in every paper, in every magazine, on every website, every day, influencing people's thoughts and behaviors. Is this not the most important time for evidence to be sound, when people will actually read it? Writers and publications should be held to a higher standard, one that requires them to be responsible and provide complete and thorough evidence for their conclusions. Until they are, we ought to learn how to think for ourselves. Okay, so in that conclusion, I tried to match up to this guideline, reread my paper as a whole, think about what I've talked about, tie it all together, and tie it to a larger context. Tannen, Copeland, evaluating evidence. Why are they important? Are they important? What do they mean for other areas of our life, other realms of our life? What do they mean for critical thinking as a whole? You can go in any direction in that conclusion as long as it's tying your thoughts together and tying them to a larger context, expanding it out from just your paper for a particular class. Sometimes it's also helpful to connect your conclusion back to your introduction. That's pretty complicated and sophisticated. You can go for it if you would like to, if you see a link between the two of them, but it's not necessary. Just a suggestion. All right, so what does this paper need to look like practically? Length and format. There's no required minimum or maximum length for your paper. There is only the requirement that it be thorough. Therefore, trust that it will be long. It should be filled to the brim with your original thoughts and analysis. Impress me. As for format, your paper should be typed. Yes, typed. No, it will not be okay if it is not typed this time. Your paper should be in Times New Roman size 12 font. Your paper should be single-spaced, and your paper should have 1-inch margins. To summarize, that is, typed, single-spaced, Times New Roman size 12, 1-inch margins, just like the example that you saw. Some of your classmates asked about APA or MLA format, title pages, and that sort of thing. I'm not concerned about any of those things right now. The only format concerns I have are these right here. Okay, so as long as you have all of this, and you're not creating 4-inch margins that make your paper 12 pages long, even though it would actually be only a paragraph long, as long as it fits this format, it's good. Okay, you don't need a title page or anything like that, unless you want to include one. It's not going to work against you, but it isn't required. All right? So, this assignment sheet with the detective will be available on Angel. The sample essay will not be available on Angel. That's why I made this video. Okay, so that is to serve as an example. Okay, to serve as an example, but not as a model. Okay, I wanted to give you expectations of what your paper, the form that your paper should take, the form that your analysis should take, so that it wasn't all just nebulous conversation. But I want the thoughts to come from you and the writing to be in your voice and you to share your thoughts with me. Perhaps some of you disagreed with some of our analysis about Tannen's evidence and have some interesting thoughts about Copeland's evidence. Perhaps you could also talk about which one uses evidence better, which one presents their evidence more completely, which one uses more relevant evidence, etc. All of those thoughts should come from you. I didn't address those things in my paper necessarily because I was just showing you the nuts and bolts, but the direction that you want to take it, as long as it meets all of these criteria and earns you all of the points, you're golden. Okay? Now, you don't have class on Thursday, so there won't be time to conference or comment on rough drafts, etc. But if you run into questions, which inevitably you will when you sit down and sort of dig into this, I'm available to you over email. You can send me your paper or the piece of your paper that you're having a difficult time with, and I can give you feedback. Or you can give me a call and we could conference about your paper just like we would in person. You can email it to me. We can be looking at the same text. Okay? So when you run into questions, I'm available to you. I'm not in class on Thursday for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to give you time to work. 2, Sam and I are going to South Carolina for a conference. But it's the morning and it just happens to run into class. So I will be available over the next week. Papers are due on Tuesday. Questions, comments, concerns, and catastrophes, let me know. Otherwise, we'll see if this technology worked. And I will see you on Tuesday.